All right. Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing? Happy Monday. Hope you guys are having a good start to your week here. Um, First things first, guys. If you're watching from the Twitch end or the YouTube end, guys, let me know if you're having any audio issues. I could, William. I can hear my echo. Okay. Um, so if you guys can hear me, fine. That's great. If you guys are having issues, please let me know in chat. I'll go ahead and straighten that out. But we should be good. Who am I hearing? All right. So before we get started, hold on. I gotta mute. Okay. All right. So we're gonna get started here. First things first, I need to just let you guys know that if you guys have any questions throughout this session, please feel free to ask, whether you're here in the Discord as well as watching it from the YouTube end slash Twitch end. To feel free to interrupt me. Um, if I miss your question, I'm sure I'll go back and read it or get a second chance to go back and look at it. So, um, but please feel free to ask any questions you might have while we're going over the TA here today. So, yeah. So going back to the basics, going back to a clean slate. On we're just gonna go over BTC, the main cryptos that I trade: BTC, ETH, Litecoin, maybe an alt or two, and from there we'll go about and talk about possible scenarios, setups, and go over kind of the thought process on how I come up with these ideas. So let's go ahead and start with BTC. So the first things first, the first thing I like to do is, if I'm approaching a new chart or if I seeing a chart for the first time, or if I'm going on to a new coin, or depending on regardless of what asset it is, I like to kind of give myself a broad perspective and focus on a certain trend, a larger trend, and kind of break that down. And from there, we can kind of go into the smaller, quote unquote, smaller setups, and we can go ahead and dissect what the possibilities of what could be happening or what could arise in the future. So, first things first, I'm going to be focusing just on the bear market here, throughout the entirety of what's been going on. And within this area of price action, the first thing I see right off the bat is that we do have a larger A to a B to a C. And as well as we do have an ABC within each individual wave, which is something I really like to see. That's something that gives you a little bit more confidence that the structure is completed or near completed. All right. And the main thing once we get to this point is I'm going to be focusing on the larger C wave. And from there, as I identified its ABC here, I'm going to go ahead and mark out the macro pivot of the A here, just to keep that as reference. So for me, and based off of this structure, if we are above the macro pivot A at around 17,600, I'm going to be a little bit more biased to the bullish side. We'll have to see how this plays out here, but I'm keeping that level in mind. If you guys aren't in any long trades at the moment, um, you could try it, but just be aware that it was, especially with these larger structures, that you do have the availability and the opportunity of getting caught up in a lot more chop. So the odds of you getting stopped out more frequent, or at least more often, are going to be increased by a little bit. So just keep that in mind. If you guys aren't playing any long positions, but or if you guys are staying on the sideline, but if you guys are looking to take a long, it wouldn't be the worst idea. Just keep in mind you're going to be opening yourself up to a little bit of exposure and a little bit of choppiness, just because of these larger swings. It's not a direct level; it's more of a zone. But I marked the line as a direct level, just as a level of correspondence and a level of confluence, depending on the idea or direction that I'm originally trading. So, um, for me, now that we have this marked out, we kind of have a good idea of what the larger, broader structure of the larger trend is. Then I'll go ahead and kind of dive deep or a little bit deeper into what's going on here. So for me personally, I'm just going to clean this up a little bit, keep this main pivot marked, and we're going to be focusing on this area of price action here, the trend here. So within this area of price action, for me, I'm going to identify this as an A to a B to a C A. We have another A to a B to a C B, and we have another A to a B to a C C here. Now, the question is this a completed done setup to where we're gonna, put in a larger push to the upside, a larger bullish reversal, or one of the things I like to do is sometimes when you get down to these smaller areas of price action, what you'll find is that sometimes you'll run into situations to where ABCs can just be one larger trend, or it can be made up into one larger trend. So this ABC can be just a larger A, right? If that is the case, we'll keep that scenario in mind. If this is just a larger A, where's the B? So for me and how I identify things, same thing goes to the smaller section of price action here. And as you can see, once we're starting to put together these ideas, that we kind of start to zoom in or focus on a little bit more narrow areas of price action. Now, there's nothing wrong with this, but just keep in mind that you can get yourself into a situation to where you can get yourself down to a 5, a 10 minute, and try to pick apart every single ABC. If you really wanted to take the time to try to break down all the individual structures, just make sure that you don't get too zoomed in, or you at least try to stick to the same or a very broad perspective, at least when it comes to the relative price action or relative area of price action that you're looking at. So for me, a good guideline is I like to stick to about the absolute lowest time frame is a 30-minute, and I am zooming all the way out. Like I cannot scroll out anymore. This is as far as I can go. If you can see a good setup on a 30-minute time frame and you're completely zoomed out, to me, that's like the lowest or the most zoomed in I'm willing to go. Anything past that, it's kind of hard to identify the levels that are most important. And from there, you can definitely get caught up in positions that might not matter too much, and you might lose sight of the actual levels or the pivots that matter, or they're going to matter either in the present of what you're looking at or the near future. So keeping that in mind, I would usually like to my go-to is about the 1 hour, and same thing. I'm keeping a zoomed out perspective. We identified the larger trend here as a larger possible A. So if we do have an A, I'm looking for a B. So within this area of price action, we do have a larger A, B, and a C. Okay. But keeping the idea or the mindset that, hey, you know what? This ABC could be a larger A. If I'm taking that principle in mind, if I can connect that A, I'm looking for a B. We do have a B here. And based off of what is going on and how price is developing, you can kind of, if you take away the rest of the lines here, you can kind of see what the next level, at least that is most important for this more relative setup that we're looking at here. So for me, the main pivot I'm looking to be bearish on, if this is going to be just a larger ABC reversal, is the top of this wick or the top of this pivot at the A here at around 18,369, 370, 18,370. And from there, I'm going to go ahead and say, you know what? If we come up here, put in a higher high, this shows a completed setup as a larger ABC. Now, if that is the case, this is going to connect the larger B, right? Something like this. And from there, if we do put in this bullish or this bearish setup, the next step I can go at least try to attempt to look for is once I zoom out, going back to a larger perspective and kind of clearing up the main trends that I'm looking for, you can see that it's it gets better with time and with practice, but you'll be able to identify A's and B's, and then it's pretty straightforward to think, okay, you know what? One of the opportunities available is that if this is an ABC or a larger ABC before reversing and putting in a lower low, this is the ideal setup that I would like to see. If that is the case, if BTC comes up, puts in a higher high, I'm looking for price to come back below 15,436. Now, where's the price label? I need to change the color of this. Yeah, the thickness is good. So let's just keep these two levels in mind. So keeping that in mind, the main important or the most important pivot that I need BTC to cross back below, if we're not done yet, if we're going to put in one more low, is at 15,436. Now, the beautiful part is price doesn't necessarily have to come up and put in this higher high. We can get another scenario or another formation, a variation of what's going on as to something like this. I'm sorry. This could be an A. We're working on a B, and we're going to come down to a C. Now, based on the most recent pump and what's been going on, I'm not necessarily leaning towards this, um, just because I think the probabilities of coming up and putting that higher high, like I mentioned before, off the first setup, is going to be more likely. But in the case that we never put in that higher high, we do have the opportunity available that if I go to, back to the 1 hour, actually, in this case scenario, I can go to a 30-minute, right? We do have an available ABC here. Once we identify that as a possible short setup, I'll go ahead and mark it. And that's pretty much it. That's the rundown on how I come up with scenarios or come up with possible trading plans based on different variations and possibilities of what price could be doing. The most important thing for me to keep in mind is identifying and keeping a larger perspective in mind, identifying what the possibilities of the larger move here can be or what the larger ABC could play out or how it could play out. And from there, you can kind of go into the smaller structures and dissect it a little bit. But like I said, try not to keep um, too large of a perspective in mind, just because, or sorry, too small of a perspective in mind, because you don't want to get yourself caught up in the smaller setups, zooming too far in and not focusing on the larger pivots or the larger levels that matter. So once you identify the levels that are key, I can go ahead and basically say, look, if price does not put in this higher high, I can go ahead and short that 1750 or at 17050. But based on the first idea that we had that we put together before, the probabilities of price coming up, putting that higher high do increase just based off of where we're at in price action right now. Doesn't necessarily mean we have to go ahead and put in that higher high, but just based on what I'm seeing, I'm most likely going to be looking for a higher high past that 18,385. Now, one final thing, one final scenario for BTC is that we can come in, put in this higher high, but we can just keep going. We don't necessarily have to come back down and put in a bearish setup. If that's the case, I do have a long position, just keeping, starting off on a clean slate again. I do have a bullish setup, and I'm holding a long position from this level here, from that 15,450. So if price can hold above there, I gotta change the color again. All right. If price can maintain above this level, and like I said, I'm still holding this position just in case that this is a larger pump and maybe we do not get a bear setup. Right. I don't know where price is going to go. My job as a trader is to give myself and put myself in the best situation or the best possible um, trades as I can and just let price do what it do. In this case, I managed to grab the low of this area, as well as I'm looking to also short the high in case this is a reversal. If this isn't a reversal, we just blow right through the resistance. Perfect. I'll go ahead and just let it ride just because I am currently holding a long position. So, um, yeah, that's pretty much the available options for BTC at the moment. Let's see. Let's go ahead and go to. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about ETH. So ETH is in a very similar situation, but the structure and how it's playing out is a little bit different than what BTC is. Oh no, hold on, guys. I gotta sneeze. If you excuse me for 1 second, I just realized I don't have any tissues by me, and I just sneezed. Just give me 1 moment. I gotta go grab tissues from the other room. Just give me 1 second. All right, sorry about that, guys. I had a sneezing fit. I'm just still getting over this cold. I really do apologize. Um, so let's see. Did I miss out on any questions? Let me just double check the chat here. Let's see. Okay, cool. Guys, like I said, I apologize. I'm still getting over this cold or flu, whatever I got, and right now I'm just not doing good when it comes to sneezing. Let's see, Mr. Glue Power in the YouTube chat asked, "Hey Johnny, considering these setups come once every few weeks, what is your position sizing when they do come? Do you go in 10% of your trading capital, 20, 50%?" That is a great question. So as of right now, I'm currently only using 3% risk on my account. All right. But what I will do is I will try to find multiple setups on different coins. The key thing is to make sure that you're not spreading yourself too thin. Okay. So you don't want to over risk And you can over risk in different ways. One, if you take, let's say, one trade, or let's say you're only trading one coin, you can go ahead and definitely use too much risk on that coin. So anything, I would suggest not going over. You can go ahead and use 3%, but that's the actual absolute maximum. And also keep in mind when I'm using the extended or the larger percentage risk, I'm also using a little bit larger of a stop loss just to give price a little bit more room to breathe so I don't get constantly wicked out. You'll find that when price gets to, or when any coin or any asset gets to lower price levels, you'll see that it'll take less it takes less money for a price to actually move. So what'll happen is, let's say for example, on Bitcoin's example, when it comes to trading up in the higher regions, up at around 69K, if you're taking a short up there, I can go ahead and you take a short position using a 1% stop loss on chart. And at the time, that's what I did. I was using 1% stop on chart with a 1% risk, or 1% risk on my account. And unfortunately, when you get to these lower price points, the only reason why it makes sense when you're trading up in these higher regions is because it gets a lot harder for price to move once you're up in those higher price regions. The opposite goes from when price gets lower. So as price is decreasing, it gets easier, or the percentage moves are less. It's the same, but it's a less dollar amount, if that makes sense. So obviously 1% of 69,000 is going to be a lot more than 1% of 17,000. So when you get to these lower price regions, and as well as even if we go lower, let's say at some point, I'll go over some of the long-term plays of what I'm looking at. Sometimes, if we do get into a situation to where BTC does get down to like that 10 to 12K region, I might even increase that a little bit more, or increase the stop loss. I'm not going to increase my risk that much more just because I just don't want to overexpose myself. And that goes into the other section, or the other way you can over risk is overexposing. So what some people tend to do is they'll sit there, find EBCs. They'll say, okay, you know what? I'm doing really good with BTC, or I'm doing good with BTC and ETH. Let's see if I can expand my horizon a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. The only issue is that you can definitely run into is that you'll be overexposing yourself by taking too many trades on too many coins. Okay. And so let's say you do take, 1%, or sorry, you take one trade using 3% risk. That's 3%. If you take two trades using 3% risk, that's 6%. You can see if you're going over to like that 4 to 5 trade mark, you're, risking 12%, anywhere from, I can't do the math, anywhere from 12 to 15% of your account at a time, depending on how many trades you're taking. And that is also a way you can overexpose yourself. So what I've been doing as price has been in these lower price regions is that I'm limiting the amount of trades I'm taking, or limiting the amount of coins that I'm allowing myself to trade. Some people ask me, do you just stick to BTC, ETH, and LTC? So at the moment, yes, because I don't want to overexpose myself by trading the big three, as well as trading, Matic, XMR, Bitcoin Cash. I don't want to sit there and take 10 different positions. When you get up to the higher price regions, you might be able to expand your horizons a little bit, but just keep in mind that you don't want to overexpose yourself by trading either one, too much on one trade, or two, taking too many trades on too many coins at once. You'll find that overexposing yourself that way can definitely lead you, especially if you're playing the wrong direction, because obviously you don't know what price is going to do. But if you're playing the wrong direction and it goes against you, you're going to be losing a lot of your account at one time. So, Mr. Glue Power, that's the best way to explain it. I try not to go anywhere over, I would say at the most 6 to 9%, but that's across multiple trades. So I would say for beginners, especially at these lower price regions, try to stick to like one, maybe two coins at a time, just because I don't want you to overexpose yourself when you're first getting into this. So that's probably the best way to approach it, in my opinion. That's what I recommend most people who are new how to approach it that way. But that is a fantastic question. Let me know if that helps, or if you need me to clarify anything else, Mr. Glue Power. But thank you. That was a great question. So let's go back to ETH. You guys can still hear me, right? Okay, yeah, I'm good on my end. Yeah. So let's go on to ETH. Like I said, ETH has been developing a little bit differently, but it's almost the exact same as what BTC is. It's kind of like foreshadowing it a little bit. I'm not saying that BTC is going to go ahead and do this. I don't know for a fact. I have to wait and see, but this is very similar to how BTC is forming. So let's go back. Let's kind of rewind a little bit. Start off with a clean slate. Start off again with the larger time frame perspective. So for me, we do have an ABC for ETH here. Now the question is this the end or is this a one larger A wave? And are we working on a B and maybe we're going to find some sort of C? Or is the B done here? Or are we going to put in another high to form a much larger B wave like this? In my opinion, this is what I'm primarily leaning on for the, I guess, worst case scenario for the Bears, or worst case scenario for the Bulls, is that maybe this is just a relief rally. We come up, fake people out, trap people in long positions up here, and then put in a much larger move to the downside. And for me personally, what I've experienced, especially when you get these larger moves like this, it can carry a lot of momentum to the opposite direction, especially when people are buying up at these levels, getting their positions trapped up here, especially if it looks good from a macro perspective. I think there's a lot more money to be sold up into this pump, and we can definitely come down and crash towards these lower lows. That doesn't necessarily have to happen directly like this. There's different variations of how it could play out. But ultimately, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear up my chart. I'm going to focus on, I'm going to leave that pivot up there because this pivot does matter regardless of what I'm currently viewing or what I'm currently thinking. For me, I would need to see a higher high be put in at this 2028 and then a reclaim back below that level. If we can get up there and not sustain and continue downwards, that's going to keep me at a much larger bearish bias. Now, as well as that, I also want to mark this pivot of the larger A here. Just in case, like I said before, this is a much larger A to a B to a C. All right. If this is going to play out, the next bullish pivot is to keep in mind is going to be at that 880 if we get back below. Now, it doesn't matter how exactly it gets down there. If we come up and don't put in a higher high, that's great. Because we still have this B wave here. We could be doing something like this. Maybe come up here, do something like that, and come back down and put in a lower C. That's absolutely in the cards as well. I'm not too concerned at the moment on the in-between stuff when it comes to these larger moves or these larger pivots. For me personally, I'm just going to be marking out the larger points that I'm looking for, and I'll go ahead and kind of work my way in and see what I can find. All right. So for me, once we identify those levels, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit and focus on this area of price action here, right? And focus on what's going on in this section. So for me, we do have a larger A, B, C to an A, larger B, and a larger C. Now, unlike BTC, we did not put in a lower low past that lowest point here. BTC did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be marking this level out here as the larger pivot of the A. Okay. And what this is going to do for me is I'm going to identify this ABC as a larger A. The next thing for me to look at is we do have a structure here. We did put in a higher high there. So to me, that is a larger completed B. Now, just because we put in this higher high here doesn't necessarily mean that this C is done and this structure is done. We can easily have the availability of coming in and putting in another setup here within the C wave. So, this is like I said before, this does happen. You do get sometimes larger ABCs within larger trends. So what could happen is we could get an extension of the C wave. And this could turn into something like this. A, B, C. Now, in order for me to confirm that move, I would need to get a higher high past that 1352. All right. And if we can get back below, or if we can get above and then back below, something like this, come up, something like that. That's going to confirm a larger potential reversal for a bearish reversal for ETH. Now, I don't know if it's gonna just come up in a tiny wick and reverse, or we can come up, keep pumping. It depends on how it develops, but if we get to a point to where ETH pumps too far or extends too far to where it doesn't make sense to take that trade, I will wait for another bearish setup to form at a higher price region, right? But it really depends on how this develops. Like I said, we can easily just come up, put in a higher wick here, and then that can be it for the ABC within the C. So that right there can put in the bullish or the bearish signal. We can definitely reverse off of that level as well. So I'm keeping that in mind. I'm going to keep that level marked out. That's a very important level for you guys to keep an eye on as ETH is getting close to the higher region. Keep in mind, this ABC is an extension of the C. So it can easily end here. Like I said, the other alternative is that we can just keep going, pump, and really, the next target, to be honest, if we continue to show strength, I'm going to be aiming to take out that 2028 high here and put in a much larger ABC off of the much larger, I wouldn't say macro, but this is definitely a higher time frame ABC, in my opinion. Let's see. Okay. I just want to make sure I'm all caught up with questions. I think I am. Like I said, guys, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask at any point. Just, grab my attention, or if you want to leave a question in chat, I will definitely get to it as soon as I can. So keeping that in mind, ultimately, I would like to see something like this play out. All right. That's the bearish case scenario, to where at the very least we come down, put in a lower low past that that 1073.50. All right. Now, mind you, this doesn't have to happen. This is just a bearish scenario for me. If that level fails, and if we just push right on through, like let's say eventually, if we come up here, get back below, and slowly work our way back down, we can easily come back down, put that lower low past that 883, and from there I can go grab the next available bullish position. But if that fails, I'll reevaluate as we get down there. But there's larger supports from previous price action that we can go based off of there. But to be honest, I think this 880 level is a very key low for ETH. And if it can't hold that, or if we can't sustain back above, if we get back below, it's not going to look good in my opinion. But like I said, I have to take things as they go, as they develop, just because you guys will see a lot of bearish setups for each of these coins. But keep in mind, there's a decent amount of bullish pressure right now. So we don't necessarily have to go ahead and just ultimately flip and come back lower. We can definitely come up, put in much larger setups, or come in, put in much higher uptrends, to where we can either get larger setups to form, or we have to sit there and reevaluate and wait for another bearish setup to come and allow us to take a short trade off of. But like I said, the beauty about trying to play both sides, and this is why I recommend you guys try to play both sides. Don't stick to one bias. Even though if you're short bias, I would try to recommend you guys to keep in mind that price doesn't necessarily have to follow a certain direction at all times. Obviously, you guys know that. At least I would hope you guys would know that. And from there, at least be open to taking the opposing side of what you might be thinking. Because sometimes you'd be surprised that you can have such a bias towards one direction. But like I said, price doesn't owe you anything. Price action charts, it can give you all the bear signals in the world. It can easily go up, pump, and reverse from there. Nothing's guaranteed. So one of the best things you can do to prevent yourself from getting caught in situations where you're caught on the wrong side of the trend is to keep an open mind and play both sides of the coin. And the way you do that is look for larger setups on both ends and try to basically play the most out of either direction or the larger trend, regardless of what side it is. And the beautiful part about it is that if you get the right spot, if you can get the trade at the right time, a lot of the times you don't have to sit there and fight on certain regions. You can get the trades and basically, regardless of what happens and what direction or what setup you're looking for, price will definitely make a larger decision and you'll be benefiting either way. So that's the goal with this, or that's one of the goals with the strategy, is it basically allow you guys to put yourselves in the best position possible and just let price action do what it do. Um, so I'm gonna go ahead and mark out these levels for you guys. Like I said, I am currently long off of that 1178, and I'm planning on holding that. Even if we do put in that bearish setup here, we do reverse. I'm going to be taking that short up there just in case. And yeah, I'll just have to wait and see what price does when we get to the upper region. But yeah, those are going to be the available setups. To keep in mind, like I said, if we come up, put in a high pass at 1354, we can easily reverse from there and put in a much larger continuation to the downside. Or if this wants to keep pumping, let it pump. The next area I would look for to take shorts is that 2028 region. So that's going to be it for ETH. Let's go over LTC here. All right, LTC like it has been developing a little bit differently, but there's different variations, and it's almost similar to what BTC and ETH is doing. So let's go ahead and clear this up so we can go ahead and take it section by section. So the most important thing right now for me to keep in mind is that we do have an A to a B to a C here. That's going to be one larger A. We did put in a very quick B wave, and it's unfortunate. I would like to see these B waves be a little bit more developed, or any of these waves be a little bit more developed, like the example with the A, as well as the potential C that we either put a top at the most recent high at around 85.31. If not, I'm looking for a ABC within the C. And I'm going to be I'm going to be looking for a higher high pass there, and we can go ahead and try to take a short off of that region. Like I said, ultimately, we can get up here. It really depends on how price behaves once we get up to that region. But ultimately, I'm going to be attempting to short that. But if price just decides to break through, unfortunately, I'm not in any long positions when it comes to LTC. So I can't benefit off of the upwards price action off of this move here. But ultimately, I'm looking for that high to be broken and reclaimed. And if by some chance we never put in a higher high, I will take a position at that 73.19 off of the larger pivot of the ABC here. So, but most likely, since we're pretty close to this high, I'm going to assume that we're probably going to go ahead and break it. But if that is the case, I will set up an entry to take shorts once we get back below. And hopefully we either catch a reversal. If not, let price pump and we'll find the next available setup for that. But that's pretty much it for Ethereum. I'm going to go over Matic just because, unfortunately, I know some of you guys did take the Matic short like I did. So I'll go ahead and just show you guys what I'm talking about. Matic had a very large bearish ABC here. Now I was looking for a much larger reversal to the downside, and it still can happen. But that's the major ABC I'm looking to play off of. Unfortunately, I did not get an entry off of that. So the next available thing of what I had to do is basically go over to a little bit more of a zoomed in perspective and try to find another available entry based off of another bearish entry based off what I see here. And for me, we had a decent A to a B to a C. And, we did dance around this region here for a little bit. I believe I only got stopped out once. I did not play I either missed the first entry or I didn't play the second entry. I forgot, but I did not play every single one of these entries. But I did get in around here for the final one. And unfortunately, we're kind of getting close to that region where I got entered, but we do have that bearish setup here. So ultimately, on the larger side, I am looking for more a much larger move to the downside, just because I'm looking at this as a larger A to a B to a C. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to happen, but for me, this is the most optimal setup for Matic when it comes to the bearish side of things. And in an idealistic mindset or an idealistic world, I would like to see this low of around 31 cents be tested if they'll most likely broken if we get back down to that region. And there's other layers of support, like everything around like 26 cents. There is a region based off of previous price action, but I have to pull up another chart for that. But yeah, unfortunately, you did have a bullish setup on Matic, and some of you guys did bring that up to my attention. For me personally, I was more focused on the shorts, and it is a good example of, even though you have a certain bias towards a certain direction, doesn't necessarily mean it does have to hold. So in this case scenario, you do have a larger A to a B to a C, the pivot being at around 76.17. So if you were above that, if you wanted to take a long position, you could have. We had a pretty good retest here, and then we're now continuing to pump to the upside. So we could have a larger move coming. It really depends. Ultimately, if we do continue to pump, I would say maybe if you can, I wouldn't know if I would go ahead and take the retest trade of that short of this larger ABC. If we can get up there and stabilize, maybe I will. If not, you're ultimately looking for a higher high past that $1.32 region. $1.3258 to be exact. So keep those levels in mind if you're interested in Matic. Like I said, unfortunately, I did not take that long entry, as well as we're kind of getting close to the entry of the original short that I did take. But it does happen. I just got to let it ride and see what happens. Let's see. Does anybody have anything else you want me to look at? I'll let you guys pick one. You guys sitting in the chat if you guys want me to look at something, as well as if you guys are hanging out with me in the Discord. See, BNB. I can definitely do BNB. All right, let's do BNB. Let's go out and zoom out a little bit. I want a fresh chart. All right, it was almost a similar setup when it came to BNB and comparing it to Matic, just because you have this larger ABC here as a potential larger short setup. But you did have a very nice ABC long setup here. That gives you the availability of the next move being a push to the upside, to where we come up and retest this region, but most likely I would probably see, or you would most likely see, a test of the most recent high at around 397.20. If that is the case, you do have a larger bearish setup. That is a larger. This is a very good example of a very large ABC, just because of how the structure in between each wave has developed. To me, this looks really good. So most likely I want to see something like this form, where we come up and put in a higher high past that 401.30. So that looks fantastic. Like I said, if you guys aren't holding a long position off of that ABC, I definitely would have taken this if I was paying attention to it, or if I was looking to trade BNB. That's just me, though. The entry would have been around 250. And then ultimately, you're probably looking, the odds of coming up here, putting a higher high do increase. So ultimately, I would say the next logical step, or the next place I would like to take a short position, is off at 398. Let me just see. And ultimately, you would want to get a much larger ABC off of this setup here. So let me just get rid of all this, just kind of show you guys the clear. Ultimately, you would want to see something like this off of this setup, or have the B come up here and the C come back down here. It doesn't have to happen, but ultimately that's the very large, very macro bullish setup I would like to see for BNB. That's if everything else comes back down at some point and puts in lower lows. But this doesn't necessarily have to happen. So just keep that in mind. All right. Let's see. Let's go over to. Does anybody have any questions regarding crypto setups or anything regarding ABCs when it comes to crypto? I will allow you guys to ask any questions. Like I said, it doesn't have to be when during the in between moments. If you guys have any questions, William, you want me to do Kava? I can do Kava as well. I'll do Kava real quick. Like I said, if you guys have any questions regarding crypto setups or ABCs in general, please feel free to ask in chat. I'm going to do my best to keep an eye out on everything to make sure I don't miss any of your questions. Let's see. So ultimately, for Kava, I'm looking at this as a larger ABC. This is a little. It's not the cleanest set of waves, but I'm looking at like this is an ABC, but ultimately the most local pivot to get back above is around this one off of this ABC. Like I said, unfortunately, this isn't the best setup just because there's a lot of ABCs in between. You can kind of get like this like wedge scenario where you can just get ABCs all the way down or up depending on which direction it is. But for me, I did not see anything worth taking until actually we're sitting at a good entry right now for Kava or CAVA. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but if you guys are looking to take a bullish or long entry, that was not a bad time to do it. Not financial advice. I know we never give financial advice. This is just something I would consider doing. But yeah, I would give myself a little bit of breathing room, probably like 3.5%, and just try to target more upside. This definitely is a big mover. It has a lot of potential. So yeah, definitely not a bad position to take. So if you guys were looking for a good setup to take, if you guys are any long positions right now, not like I said, not financial advice though. All right. Let me just make sure I'm all caught up. Okay, cool. All right. So I'm going to move on to traditional markets. We're going to go over, some of the uh, bigger cap stocks like the SPY, uh, Dow Jones. I'm also going to take a look at the DXY. So there's some things I want to touch on there. So pretty much long story short, when it comes to what's going on with the SPY, main pivot of this larger ABC here that I have in the blue is going to be 362.41. If we can maintain above that, that definitely shows a little bit side of more bullish pressure, in my opinion. But there is something I do want to keep in mind and identify to you guys, let you guys know what could be happening. Is one of the scenarios is that we are looking at this as a much larger A to a B. And ever since we got this pump, I think we're going to come up and put in a higher high. I could be wrong. But if we do come up and put in this higher high, for me personally, this is going to put a much larger bearish B wave. And from there, I'd be targeting much lower lows. So that's something I would like to see as a larger potential bearish setup to form before continuing downwards. It doesn't necessarily have to. But at the moment, if we can get back above 410.21, that's going to show me a little bit more bearish pressure, and I'd be looking for much lower lows if that is the case. If that doesn't happen and we come up and keep pumping, the next logical step once we break this kind of pocket of resistance is going to be the test of the new high in around 480. So, yeah, there's definitely a lot to look forward to when it comes to the Dow Jones, the S&P 500, regardless of what direction you're looking to trade. Dow Jones, real quick, very kind of same scenario. It's just playing out a little bit slightly different. For me, I'm looking at this as a larger potential B to play out. If that is the case, if we come up with this higher high past 34,770, I would say the odds of coming down do increase, and we do have the potential to form a much larger structure here, with the lower pivot being the pivot of the largest A around 28,673. So that'll be a fantastic setup if we do happen to play out this way. If we can come up, put in a higher high, and keep pushing through. The next logical step is going to be that 36,990. So just keep that in mind as well. All right, let's do the DXY because I know I wanted to touch on something with the DXY. So something very important is going on with the DXY at the moment. The reason why I say that is because I want to show you guys the much larger setup here, right? So in order for me to, I just want to just give you guys a clean, fresh chart, right? Based off of what's going off of this uptrend, we do have a larger A to a B to a C. That's going to put together a much larger A. We do have a larger B, and then we have a C here. Now, for me personally, I'm going to mark out this pivot of the larger A here as a potential bearish setup. Now, why is this important? Because for me personally, based on what I've seen, obviously, I would hope you guys understand that there is some sort of inverse correlation between the DXY and assets in general across the board. It doesn't have to be just crypto, it's stocks. There's a lot of things that inversely correlate to the dollar. If money is moving into the dollar, it's taking out of assets and vice versa. So for me personally, based off of what I see off of this chart, if the DXY continues to hold below 103.89, that folks is going to be a huge bearish setup. And to me personally, this could be, come on, I want to show you guys where that pivot is. Yeah, this pivot here. This could be a means to not an end for the DXY, but this could be a sign of a much larger downtrend coming. If that is the case, this can definitely give the argument side to Bitcoin and everything else pumping to much higher highs. I'm not saying bull run highs, but I definitely think we could be due for a retesting market, especially the DXY shows weakness. That's for me, that's probably the most important level to keep an eye out for the DXY. I'm not really focused on some of the smaller setups. You do have one here, but I personally don't trade the DXY. I don't think you can. I think you might be able to, but these pivots are so close to each other. I'm prioritizing the macro the macro bearish ABC, and I'm focusing on the macro bearish pivot. So ultimately, I'm going to see how it behaves and if it can hold or if we're just going to continue dropping lower. If that is the case, like I said, the DXY is not going to do well or it doesn't look good. And when it comes to inverse correlation, assets in itself will do a lot better. Let's go over. Just make sure. Okay. Let me just double check on ES is pretty much the same as the S&P. I want to do gold just because we're coming up on some important levels here. So for gold, we do have a ginormous ABC here on the 2-day, going back from 2008. Keep in mind, like I said, when it comes to these ginormous ABCs, especially when it comes to playing off of gigantic multi-decade setups, you got to give price a little bit of wiggle room. It's not going to respect it to a T, in my opinion. It could, but the odds of it, the odds of you getting one tiny wick above and calling it a completed setup is very slim, in my opinion. So you got to give price a little bit of room in the in-between region to kind of bounce around before allowing it to make a major decision. With that being said, keeping that larger ABC in mind, let's go to 8-hour. Maybe I might have to go to a daily. Yeah, keeping that in mind. All right. Taking a look at this C wave here. We do have a larger ABC. All right, to complete an A. We do have another ABC here. Now, we did not put in a higher high, so this does count as a ABC, even though we pretty much got a retest of the 0. That's a larger ABC to complete a B. And ultimately, I'm probably going to be looking for a retest of the highest level here at about 2077. So Yeah, 2077. So if we can get back above there and eventually come back down below, I might be a little bit more concerned for gold, but for the meantime, gold looks pretty good. I think we're due for a rally here in the next coming months. If not, I would say throughout the rest of 2023. But we'll see. Let me just keep in. Also, like I said, the 1927 larger pivot back from like 2008, as well as you do have this ABC bullish setup here off of that 1678 region. As long as we're above 1678, things are looking good. And we're most likely going to be coming up here and testing and breaking the highs at 2077. All right, let's do. I want to do Tesla because Tesla has been interesting. Now, not too ABC related, is because we do have a larger separation in trends. It's going to be an A to a B to a C, based off the logic and the rules of the ABC trading method. You wouldn't be taking a bullish position until we get to about 207. Unfortunately, there's a very large separation between the A and the C. So ideally, I would like to see a larger ABC form within the C. Maybe we come down, put another relief rally, and maybe come back down and test 91, somewhere around there. That I would consider a much larger bullish ABC, and I would be more willing to take a buy position off of Tesla based off of that region. But we're sitting in this pocket of support here based off of these local lows. So you can see based off of that price did test this region. We're still sitting in this region, but it looks decent. But for me, I would not want to take a position on Tesla until I get a much larger ABC on a larger time frame or a larger perspective. Let's see. And I'll do silver quick. Silver is let's see. Okay. Let's go to a 2-day. So silver is an interesting situation. We do have an ABC pivot off of a larger A here. Let me just go ahead and clear this up actually. All right. So if we can if we can stay above 1361, that's going to be a little bit more a little more bullish for silver, as well as we're currently working on a B wave. Now, ultimately, I want to see this something like this form to where we put in a higher high past 3031, and then we can go ahead and connect the A and the B, and then ultimately look for a larger C. That's something I would keep in mind, as well as if that isn't the case, the C wave can easily extend and put in a higher high past here, ultimately putting a much more completed structure at the 4980 region. So, ultimately, that's going to be the larger move that I'll be looking for. If I go to like a 3-day, it's going to be a much larger ABC. But keep in mind this is from 2001, so these setups might take a very long time to build. So hopefully, I would say within the next year or so, I would say the next 2 years, depending on how this trend forms, we can either get a completed ABC bear structure to where we don't put in a new high past that pivot at $49 and then reverse, or we come up and put in a higher high past the highest high here and then reverse from there. Ultimately, that's what I'm looking for silver. Making sure no one has any questions. All right. I will do Apple real quick because Apple I want to touch on. So Apple had a very nice ABC set up here. And to be honest, guys, you don't get too many opportunities to get larger ABC corrections for Apple. So in my opinion, I think, not like I said, not financial advice, but I would definitely consider picking up some Apple shares in this region. It wouldn't be a bad buy. Ultimately, you could see lower, but from a probability standpoint as well as a analytical standpoint, based off of this setup, it looks really good in my opinion. So I definitely think it's a good opportunity to pick up some Apple at $1.29, since especially that we're above that pivot of the larger A. But ultimately, if that's the case, you're going to be looking for a larger uptrend on the upside. Did you have a question? Oh, okay. I guess not. So I would ultimately be looking for something like this. It's a very large ABC, but I would consider that a much larger completed structure. Ultimately, that's what I'd be looking for to come in the next coming years. But we'll see how it develops over time. And like I said, based off of the structure, you don't see too many ABCs on Apple that often. So I wouldn't. I definitely would. Well, me personally, I did pick up a share of Apple. I don't sprinkle too much into stocks. I do sprinkle a little bit. So I did buy a share on like 129, 130. So I'm definitely going to be holding that for a longer play. But let's see what happens. Maybe I might pick up another share if I'm feeling it. And then is Vlad in here? Vlad is not in here. So I'll save the VMW for him when I see him the next time. But yeah. What was that, William? Yeah, that is true. You know what? All right. I'll do it for Vlad just in case he missed the he's gonna miss the replay. So or just in case. Oh wow. All right. So something interesting did happen. So for BMW, ultimately, I'm looking for this as a larger A to a B to a C. Now, I did want to see a lower low get put in. Sorry, you know what? Let me just remove because I want to use the ABC tool. I ultimately wanted to see a lower low get put in to show a much larger completed B wave, but it doesn't necessarily have to happen. This is one of those scenarios where it's probably not going to happen. Since we're kind of uptrend, we're putting in a decent uptrend. I'm going to be ultimately looking for this as a larger A to a B to a C. So if BMW can get back above 139 and get back below, I'm definitely going to be considering taking a sell position on that and probably looking for a much larger reversal. But ultimately, besides that, I don't see. I mean, we do have the potential of this happening as well. If we don't put in a higher high, we do have something like this that could be happening. So if we do not put in a higher high, we can go ahead and get back below about 80. Was that 84.68? And from there, we can do something like this. All right. And maybe we'll actually end up putting a lower low. Remember, this is only contingent on if we do not put it a higher high. If we put it a higher high, I have to delete this ABC off the table. All right, and focus on the larger setup. So this could happen as well, but it really depends on how price behaves. But ultimately, I'm either at this point, since we're putting in a decent uptrend, I'm going to say the probabilities of coming up and breaking that high are definitely going to be increased, in my opinion. So I think that's pretty much it. That's all I got for when it comes to everything I wanted to look at of the levels that are key for you guys to keep an eye out on. If you guys have any questions regarding ABCs, please feel free to ask. All right. I guess I did a good job then. Thanks for your overview as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the information. All right. Guys. Okay. Thank you guys as well. I really appreciate you guys coming by, hanging out, listening to me talk. Hope you guys can learn something new today. If you have any questions, if you guys are in David's group, feel free to tag me as well as some of you guys are here also in my Discord. Feel free to tag me in my Discord as well as DM me. If you guys have any questions regarding ABCs. All right, guys. Until then, I'll catch you guys on the next one. I do appreciate you guys stopping by, watching the live stream. If you guys are interested, please check out the YouTube channel here. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this out. Can I add it back to the tab? Maybe not. My YouTube information is going to be in the description of this video. If not, feel free to check out my bio in the Discord. As well as, like I said, you guys can contact me via Discord anyway, regardless if it's a server or if it's in my DMs. But you guys are definitely free to ask me any questions you might have. But until then, I do appreciate every single one of you guys for stopping by. Until next time, until next week, I'll see you guys on the next one.